Now, that is obviously a difficult question to answer because our experience in Luxembourg is with our graduates is that they go to various markets, if one could call them, academic markets after graduating, especially the PhD students. And the conditions on these different markets within Europe are quite different. There are more closed systems which put a great emphasis on having been active within the system, having published, for example, in French or in German. And there are markets which one could call more open in the sense as that they are more open to experiences gathered in different legal systems. Amongst these are definitely the Netherlands and the UK, to a certain degree Ireland, to a certain degree Sweden. Definitely Luxembourg is a very open system because having gathered experience in different legal systems is our precondition for being admitted, is rather than, as in other systems, a negative. But that said, my advice to young scholars in general is not to be afraid of the difficulties in different markets. You have to be realistic of what you need to fulfill, but also adventurous in pursuing your research interest. It's only if there's a clear outline to the research interest and a pursuit thereof that you will be good in what you do, you will have fun with what you do, and that will show in the results, and results pay off. If you follow someone else's agenda, you will necessarily not be able to be so good at what you do. Part of the problem is that, of course, modern university life has a whole set of evaluation criteria which are designed to make you follow someone else's agenda. For example, how much research money was acquired. Acquiring research money, of course, means very often following the money giver's agenda so that you pursue their projects, because otherwise you would not get the money. So there the difficulty is, given the reality that one has to play the game, is often to combine the question asked by the source of money, be it the European Horizon 2020 or any other kind of project, and your own research interest, and be good at that. Now that's not an easy game to play, but it's what we have to do. A good PhD thesis. There are a few abstract criteria which are hard to fulfill, but one needs to work towards. One is clearly to have a research question which is defined in a way which allows you as a researcher to write chapter by chapter and paragraph and sentence towards answering the research question. So a structure of your PhD thesis which is opened by the research question and gets closed by the answers to the research question. And every step in between answers in a way, or is a contribution to the answer. Now, that requires a strictness of reworking and reworking a thesis, especially at the end when all the research is done and all the writing is done. As a practical suggestion, I would always advise to start writing early. Never sit around and read everything under the sun and then think about starting to write. Because the difficulty is you will have forgotten all you have read and you'll have to start rereading, and it becomes an infernal circle. Often it is so that with the first bits and pieces and articles one reads about a specific topic, there is an intellectual stimulus which makes one think about things in a very creative manner and writes down structure. Start writing it down also on paper, and then fill that structure and revise it as you go, as you write. It doesn't mean that you slavishly have to follow what you outlined at the beginning. Quite the contrary. The more essential a part of your thesis is, like the introduction and the conclusions, the more often you will write it, and the more often you will rewrite it during writing the thesis. But the key point is start having the flow of ideas onto the paper Don't hesitate and don't be shy to rewrite them from time to time, and thereby put something on paper which you can refine rather than at the end of the day, when the last months of your financing or your period of writing the thesis come, to scramble to get something onto the paper, which then is unsatisfactory because it doesn't reflect all. Obviously, there are many different styles of writing a thesis, and there is no good general advice as to how best to do it. You have to do it as fits your style, your specific approach. Now, the best thing to do is to try that. And what I often suggest, what PhD candidates should do, is to start outlining their topic in an article form. It doesn't mean that you have to publish it, but it means that you will have a structure and you will be forced by writing to think hard and very, very seriously about the structure. Because the magical process of writing is that it clarifies ideas whilst you are at it and whilst you do it. There's nothing quite to replace it. Only when you have the argument on paper do you see whether it's worth it and whether it works and whether there are other sub-elements which you have to add. In theory, many things sound good. On paper, you have the test.